So it's like 3 in the morning, right? I'm 4 years into this job with Alabama State Patrol, still basically a rookie compared to these old-timers who've been doing this since forever. I'm working the graveyard shift out in Black Creek County, middle of nowhere, just pine trees and abandoned farms for miles. It's dead quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you hear your own heartbeat. Then dispatch crackles through. Unit 11, we got an abandoned vehicle on Old Man's Bridge, silver Dodge Caravan, no plates called in yet, can you check it out? I'm thinking it's probably just some drunk who walked home, or a breakdown, you know? Happens all the time out here. But man, I had this feeling in my gut, like something wasn't right. I grabbed my flashlight, radioed back that I'm 1076, and headed out there. The bridge is this old concrete thing that crosses the creek, surrounded by woods so thick you can't see more than 20 feet in. When I pulled up, my headlights caught the van just sitting there dead center of the bridge, engine off. No hazards, nothing. Just there. I stepped out and right away something felt off, like really off. The air was too still, you know what I mean? Not a breeze, not a cricket, nothing. I approached the van with my hand on my service weapon, called out State Patrol, anyone in there? A couple times. No answer. I looked through the driver's window, and the keys were still in the ignition, just dangling there. The doors were unlocked, so I opened it up, and Jesus Christ, the smell that hit me. It was this super strong cinnamon smell mixed with something else, like homemade cooking, like somebody had just been eating dinner in there 5 minutes ago. There was a Tupperware container on the passenger seat, still warm to the touch, with what looked like apple pie or something. And right next to it, there's this baby blanket, pink with little white lambs on it, folded all neat and perfect. I'm looking around the van. No purse, no phone, no registration in the glove box, nothing. But everything else looked normal, clean, like someone just stepped out to take a leak or something. Except nobody steps out in the middle of a bridge at 3 in the morning. I radioed dispatch. Unit 11, vehicles abandoned, no occupants, no signs of distress. I'm gonna sweep the perimeter. That's procedure, right? Check the area, make sure nobody's hurt or passed out in the woods. That's when I heard it, this faint, tinny music coming from the trees. At first I thought maybe it was my imagination. You know, your mind plays tricks on you when you're alone out there in the dark. But no, it was real. It was like a music box, playing one of those old lullabies, but it sounded wrong, like the mechanism was broken or winding down. It was coming from deeper in the woods, maybe 50, 60 yards off the road. I'm standing there thinking, Sarah, don't be stupid, call for backup first. But dispatch is 40 minutes away at least, and what if someone's hurt? What if there's a kid out there? So I grabbed my mag light, clicked on my body cam, thank God I did that, and started following the sound. The woods are thick as hell, full of pine needles and brambles, and my flashlight's cutting through the dark like a knife. The music's getting louder, clearer. It's that song, you know, Hush Little Baby, but it's all distorted and creepy sounding. I'm pushing through branches, my heart's pounding in my ears, and then I break through into this little clearing. The music box is sitting right there in the middle, on top of fresh dirt. And I'm thinking, okay, weird, but maybe some kids were out here messing around. Then I see it. 3 mounds of dirt, freshly dug, lined up perfect next to each other like graves. I'm not kidding, they were rectangular, neat, like someone took their time. Each one maybe 5 feet long, 2 feet wide. My stomach just dropped. On top of the first mound, there's a stuffed rabbit, looks brand new. On the third one, there's a rubber duck, the kind you put in a bathtub. And in the middle, that's where the music box is, still playing that nightmare lullaby. I'm frozen, just staring, and my brain's trying to process what I'm seeing. I key my radio and my voice is shaking. Dispatch, I need backup right now, I need homicide, I got 3 possible burial sites here. The dispatcher's asking me to repeat, and I'm trying to stay professional, but inside I'm freaking the hell out. I took photos, I marked the area, I didn't touch anything. That's contaminating evidence. Then I backed out of there real slow, keeping my flashlight on those mounds the whole time, half expecting something to move. When I got back to the road, my car was still there, the van was still there, but something was different. I walked up to the passenger side, and that baby blanket? The pink one with the lambs? It was gone. Completely gone. I know it was there because I touched it, I saw it. It's on my body cam footage. But now it's just not there. I sat in my patrol car with the doors locked, waiting for backup, and I'm running through everything in my head. The warm food, the music box, the graves, the blanket disappearing. None of it made sense. Then dispatch comes back on. Unit 11, we ran the VIN on that caravan. It's registered to an Evelyn Carter, reported missing 2 days ago out of Montgomery, along with her 3 grandchildren, ages 4, 6, and 8. Last seen leaving a family dinner Sunday night. My blood went cold. 3 grandchildren, 3 graves. I looked back at the woods, and I swear I could still hear that music box faintly in the distance, even though I was like 100 yards away. Backup arrived about 30 minutes later, 2 county deputies and a detective. We went back into those woods with cadaver dogs, ground-penetrating radar, the whole 9 yards. You know what we found? Nothing. Those mounds were shallow, maybe a foot deep, just dirt and pine needles. No bodies, no evidence, nothing. But the toys were still there, and the music box had wound down completely, stopped mid-note. The detective kept asking me, "Are you sure about what you saw? Are you sure the blanket was there?" "Yeah, I'm damn sure. It's on video." But here's the thing that keeps me up at night. They never found Evelyn Carter. They never found those kids. The van was clean, no prints, no blood, nothing. It's like they just evaporated. 6 months later, I transferred to a day shift in a different county because I couldn't do those night patrols anymore. Every time I'd drive past Old Man's Bridge, I'd see that van in my mind, smell that cinnamon, hear that music. The case is still open, still unsolved. Sometimes I wonder if I imagine the whole thing, if maybe I had some kind of episode or something. But then I watch my body cam footage again, and it's all there, the van, the food, the blanket. Everything except an explanation. What gets me is those toys. Why leave toys on empty graves? Was it a message? A warning? Or did we just not dig deep enough? The locals started saying Old Man's Bridge is cursed now, that it's happened before, people disappearing near there, vehicles found empty. I don't know if I believe in that stuff, but I know what I saw. And I know that somewhere out there, Evelyn Carter and those 3 kids are either hiding or they're gone in a way we'll never understand. I still have nightmares about that music box. Sometimes in my dreams, I open those graves and there's nothing but more dirt going down forever. Other times, I hear children laughing in the woods, and when I follow the sound, I find that pink blanket hanging from a tree branch, swaying in the wind. But there's never any wind. I'm telling you right now, what I saw that night broke something inside me that never quite healed back right. Me and my partner Alicia Brooks, we'd been working together for about 2 years at that point, doing night patrol in Charleston, South Carolina. Good area, mostly quiet. You know, families, retirees, the kind of neighborhood where the biggest call you get is somebody's dog got loose or teenagers throwing a party. So when dispatch hits us up around 10:45 asking us to do a welfare check on North End Street, we're thinking it's going to be routine. Some old guy forgot to answer his phone, probably fell asleep watching TV or something. The neighbor called it in saying Mr. Harrison, this 78-year-old dude who lived alone, always kept his porch light on, and his living room lit up like a Christmas tree every single night without fail. But tonight, pitch black, every window dark. Neighbor said he knocked, rang the doorbell, nothing. Now look, I've done 100 welfare checks, and 99 times the person's fine, just didn't hear the door or their hearing aid died. But there's always that one time, you know? That one time it's bad. Alicia and I pulled up to the house, and man, it just felt wrong immediately. Can't explain it, just one of those gut feelings you get. The house looked normal from the outside, nice little 2-story colonial, white paint, flower boxes in the windows, but every single light was off. We walked up to the front door, knocked hard, announced ourselves. Charleston Sheriff's Department, Mr. Harrison. We're here to check on you, sir. Nothing. Not a sound. Alicia tried the doorknob, locked. We went around back, and that's when I noticed something weird. The back door was unlocked, like not just unlocked, but slightly open, maybe an inch or 2. I looked at Alicia, she looked at me, and we both drew our sidearms. I pushed the door open with my boot and called out again. Still nothing. Then the smell hit us, but it wasn't what you'd expect. It wasn't death or decay. I know that smell, unfortunately. This was different. It was like old paper, dust, like a library that hadn't been opened in 50 years. Stale air, you know? We stepped inside, flashlights up, clearing rooms one by one. Kitchen was clean, dishes in the sink, half a sandwich on the counter like he'd just made it. But then we got to the living room, and I stopped dead in my tracks. Every single piece of furniture, the couch, the armchair, the coffee table, the TV stand, all of it was turned around facing the wall. Not knocked over, not ransacked, but deliberately turned around like someone took their time doing it. Alicia whispered, "What the hell?" And I'm thinking the same thing because this isn't a robbery, this is something else entirely. We kept moving through the house, and every room was the same. Dining room chairs, all facing the wall. Bedroom furniture, same thing. But nothing was stolen. There was a watch on the dresser, cash in a dish by the door, nothing taken. What was missing though, that's what got under my skin. There were picture frames everywhere, on the walls, on shelves, on tables, but every single photo was gone. Not the frames, just the photos themselves, ripped right out. Some frames were broken like whoever did it was in a hurry or angry. Then I noticed the bookshelf in the hallway. Mr. Harrison had one of those big floor-to-ceiling bookcases packed with old hardcovers, the kind people collect over a lifetime. Alicia pulled one out and flipped it open. The first page, where people usually write dedications or inscriptions, to my darling husband on our anniversary, or whatever, it was torn out. Clean, like someone used a razor. She grabbed another book. Same thing. Every single book in that house had its dedication page carefully removed. I'm standing there thinking, who does this? What kind of sick bastard breaks into an old man's house and steals memories? That's what it felt like someone was erasing this guy's entire life, piece by piece. We found Mr. Harrison in the attic, and honestly, I wish we hadn't, because that image is burned into my brain forever. The attic stairs were pulled down, and we could see a dim light up there like a single bulb. Alicia went up first, and I heard her say, "Oh my God, Mike, get up here." I climbed up, and there he was, Mr. Harrison, sitting in a wooden chair in the middle of the attic, just staring straight ahead at nothing. His eyes were open, he was breathing, but he wasn't there, you know what I mean? Like his body was present, but his mind was somewhere else. I waved my hand in front of his face, nothing. No reaction. Alicia checked his pulse, strong and steady, but he wouldn't respond to anything. On his lap was this stack of papers, and when I looked closer I realized they were the dedication pages from his books and the photos from the frames, all torn and crumpled up like someone had dumped them there. Then I saw it in the corner, a white sheet draped over something, and it was moving. Not like wind moving it, but like someone underneath was breathing. My heart just stopped. I raised my weapon and said, "Show me your hands now." The sheet didn't move for a second, then slowly, this hand came out from under it. The hand was covered in this fine white powder, like dust or chalk. Then the whole sheet fell away, and there was a man sitting there on the floor, cross-legged, calm as anything. This guy, he wasn't armed, he wasn't aggressive, but something about him made every hair on my body stand up. He was maybe mid-30s, skinny, wearing regular clothes, jeans and a dark hoodie, but he was absolutely covered in that white dust like he'd been sitting in an old flour sack. In his lap was this scrapbook, one of those big fancy ones with leather binding, and he was holding it like it was the most precious thing in the world. Alicia had her gun on him, shouting at him to get on the ground, but he just smiled. Not a crazy smile, not a threatening smile, but this satisfied, peaceful smile like he'd just finished a really good meal. I asked him, "Who the hell are you? What did you do to Mr. Harrison?" And I swear to God, his voice was so calm it was almost worse than if he'd been screaming. He said, "I am the memory of this house." Just like that. Didn't elaborate, didn't explain, just sat there smiling with that scrapbook in his hands. Alicia grabbed the book from him and flipped it open. Inside was every single photo and dedication from downstairs, all carefully glued in, organized by date, with little notes written in the margins in this tiny, perfect handwriting. Notes like wedding day, June 12, 1970, and first grandchild, March 3, 1998. This guy had cataloged Mr. Harrison's entire life. We arrested him, obviously, but the whole thing didn't sit right. It still doesn't. Mr. Harrison was taken to the hospital, and they said he had some kind of traumatic dissociative state, like his brain just shut down to protect itself. He couldn't remember his wife's name, couldn't remember his kids, couldn't remember anything from the last 40 years. The doctors said it might come back, might not. The guy we arrested? They ran his prints, his DNA, searched every database, nothing. No record of him existing anywhere. No ID, no wallet, no phone. When detectives interrogated him, he just kept saying the same thing over and over. "I preserve what people forget." They charged him with breaking and entering, assault, all that, but he never went to trial because he was declared mentally unfit. Last I heard, he's in a state psychiatric facility, and he spends every day writing in notebooks, filling them with other people's memories that he claims to have absorbed. As for me, I couldn't shake it. For months after that night, I'd wake up in a cold sweat thinking about my own house, my own photos, my own memories. I started checking my picture frames obsessively, making sure everything was still there. I'd pull books off my shelf to check the dedication pages, My wife thought I was losing it. Maybe I was. 6 months later, I put in my resignation. Told them I needed a career change, needed to do something else. Truth is, I couldn't be a cop anymore because every time I walked into a house on a call, I'd think about that guy sitting in the attic, covered in dust, cataloging someone's entire existence. And I'd wonder, what if he's not the only one? What if there are more of them out there, collecting us piece by piece, and we don't even know it until it's too late? I still have nightmares where I'm sitting in that chair, blank-faced, while someone tears my life apart and glues it into a book. And in the dream, I can't move, can't speak, can't stop them. I just sit there and watch myself disappear. I need you to understand something before I tell you this. I'm not crazy, I'm not making this up, and I damn sure wasn't on anything that night. My name's Ryan Miller, been with Pittsburgh PD for 7 years, and I've seen some weird stuff on night shift, but nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for what happened at Echo Valley Warehouse. This was back in late November, freezing cold, one of those nights where your breath just hangs in the air like fog. I'm patrolling the industrial zone on the east side, all these old factories and warehouses that have been shut down since the economy tanked in '08. Most of them are just sitting there rotting, broken windows, graffiti, the usual. Dispatch calls me around 1:55 in the morning. Unit 23, we got a security alarm going off at Echo Valley Warehouse on Decker Street. Can you check it out? I'm thinking it's probably just a raccoon or some homeless guy trying to get out of the cold. Happens all the time. I pull up to this massive building, gotta be like 200 feet long, just a big rectangular brick box with high windows and one of those old rolling metal doors. The alarm's still blaring when I get there, echoing off the empty street. I grab my flashlight, radio in that I'm going on foot to investigate, and I approach the side entrance. Door's been pried open, locks busted. Great. I draw my weapon, announce myself. Pittsburgh Police, if anyone's in there, show yourself now. And I step inside. The second I walk through that door, the temperature dropped like 20 degrees and the darkness just swallowed me whole. I'm talking pitch black, couldn't see 2 feet in front of me even with my mag light. The alarm shut off right as I entered, which was weird timing, but I figured maybe it was on a timer or something. I start sweeping my light around, concrete floors, metal support beams, old pallets stacked up against the walls, everything covered in dust and bird droppings. The place smelled like rust and mildew, that wet industrial smell, you know. I'm walking down this long hallway, just a straight corridor with doors on either side, probably old offices or storage rooms. I check a few, empty, nothing but trash and broken furniture. I keep going, take a right turn at the end, then another right, figuring I'm doing a perimeter check of the interior. But then I end up back at the entrance where I started. I stop and think, okay, that makes sense, I just walked a square. Except it didn't feel like a square. It felt like I'd been walking straight lines that should have taken me deeper into the building, not back to the start. I check my watch, I've been inside maybe 10 minutes. I key my radio. Unit 23, still clearing the building, no contact yet. Static. No response. I try again. Nothing. Radio's dead. Battery's full, but I got 0 signal, which doesn't make sense because I'm literally 50 feet from my cruiser. That's when things started getting wrong, like reality bending wrong. I decide to try again, but this time I'm paying real close attention. I pull out my pocket knife and mark the doorframe at the entrance with a little scratch, so I know if I pass it again. I head down the same hallway, counting my steps. 50 steps, then I take a left. Another 50 steps, another left. I should be on the opposite side of the building now, nowhere near the entrance. But I shine my light on the doorframe, and there it is, my scratch mark. I'm back at the entrance. My heart's starting to pound now, because this doesn't make any sense. I'm a grown man, I've got a decent sense of direction, and I sure as hell know how to walk through a building. I look at my phone, no signal, and the time says 2:47 a.m. That can't be right. I've only been inside for like 15 minutes, tops. I try the door I came through. Won't open. The handle turns, but the door won't budge, like something's holding it shut from the other side. Now I'm starting to panic a little, not gonna lie. I take a deep breath, tell myself to calm down, and I start walking again. This time I find a staircase that I swear to God was not there before. It's metal, industrial, leading up. I point my flashlight up the stairs and I can see a landing, maybe a second floor. But here's the thing, from the outside, this building is one story. I saw it when I pulled up. No second floor. I don't want to go up those stairs. Every instinct in my body is screaming at me not to. but I got no choice because the exit's blocked and I need to find another way out. I climb the stairs, each step echoing like a drumbeat, and when I reach the top, I'm in another hallway. But it's identical to the one downstairs, same length, same doors, same everything. I mean perfectly identical, down to the way the dust patterns on the floor look. I walk down it, shining my light in the rooms, and they're the same too, same broken desks, same busted chairs, same positions. It's like someone copy-pasted the entire first floor and stuck it up here, except there is no up here. This floor shouldn't exist. I'm trying to rationalize it, thinking maybe I'm disoriented, maybe I got turned around, but I know what I saw from outside. Then I hear it. At first I think it's just the building settling, old metal creaking, but no, it's something else. It's this wet, dragging sound like something heavy and moist being pulled across concrete, and it's coming from inside the walls. I stop moving, hold my breath, and listen. The sound moves along the wall to my right, slow and deliberate, keeping pace with where I'm standing. Then it stops. Silence. My flashlight flickers, batteries are fine, but the light's strobing like there's interference. Then I hear breathing. Not my breathing. Something else. It's raspy, labored, like someone with fluid in their lungs, and it's coming from above me, from the ceiling, except there's no crawl space up there, just solid concrete and rebar. I ran. I'm not ashamed to say it, I straight up ran. I bolted back toward the stairs, but when I got there, the stairs were gone. Just a wall. A solid brick wall, where the staircase had been 30 seconds ago. I'm spinning around, flashlight whipping back and forth, and every door I'd passed is now closed. They were all open before, I know they were. I try one locked. Another one locked. I'm pulling on handles, kicking at doors, and then I hear it again, that dragging sound, but now it's faster, moving through the walls toward me. And then I hear the click. It's a metallic click, like a lock turning, and it's coming from every door at once, all down the hallway, click, 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 one after another like dominoes. I'm freaking out, sweating even though it's freezing, and I just pick a direction and run. I don't know how long I ran, feels like forever, but eventually I see light, actual light, coming from under a door at the end of a hallway. I sprint to it, slam into it with my shoulder, and it flies open. I tumble out into the cold night air, land hard on gravel, and I'm gasping, looking back at the building. I'm outside. The side entrance is right there, door still hanging open. My cruiser's parked where I left it. I check my watch, 3:47 a.m. I've been inside for almost 2 hours. I look up at the building, and it's exactly what it should be. A one-story rectangular warehouse with high windows, no second floor. I sat in my car shaking for a good 20 minutes before I could even key the radio. When I finally reported back to dispatch, I told them I'd cleared the building, found no intruders, alarm was probably faulty. Didn't mention anything else because how the hell do you explain that? I'd sound insane. But here's what really messed me up. The next day, my sergeant called me into his office. He'd reviewed my body cam footage like he does with all alarm calls. He showed me the video, and I watched myself walk into that warehouse, walk in a straight line down the main hallway for 40 minutes, just walking and walking in what should have been a 100-foot space. I don't turn, I don't go upstairs, I don't run. I just walk slowly forward like I'm in a trance. But the audio, man, the audio is what made me go cold. You can hear my footsteps, you can hear my breathing, but underneath it, if you turn the volume way up, there's this whisper. It's faint, but it's there, repeating over and over. He's here, he's here, he's here. My sergeant asked me if I heard anything unusual that night. I lied and said no. He seemed relieved, said he was glad I was okay, and told me the building's been scheduled for demolition next month. They're tearing it down because apparently I'm not the first cop who's responded to alarms there and had technical difficulties. 3 other officers over the years reported radio problems and disorientation inside that building. One of them never went back on patrol, just quit the force. I don't work that sector anymore. I requested a transfer to day shift, told them I needed better hours for family reasons. But the truth is I can't drive past that building. I've tried. I get within a block and my hands start shaking, my chest tightens up, and I have to turn around. Sometimes late at night, when I'm lying in bed, I swear I can still hear that dragging sound in the walls of my own house, and that whisper, he's here. And I wonder if I ever really left that warehouse, or if some part of me is still walking down that impossible hallway, trapped in a loop, while something in the walls watches and waits. I swear on everything I love, what I'm about to tell you is the God's honest truth, and it's the reason I can't sleep without checking every vent in my house. My name's Elena Soto, I've been a cop in Detroit for about 5 years now, working the South Side with my partner David Chan. We've seen it all down there: shootings, domestics, overdoses, you name it. Cedar Grove housing projects, that's our beat, and let me tell you, that place is rough. Buildings falling apart, half the lights don't work, people struggling just to get by. So when dispatch calls us at 11:40 on a Tuesday night about a domestic disturbance in Building 3, Apartment 3C, we're not surprised. Happens every night. Someone's fighting with their boyfriend, their husband, their baby daddy, whatever. The caller was Mrs. Dale from 3B, said she heard screaming coming through the walls, woman's voice, sounded like she was in trouble. Me and Sean, we've been partners for 2 years, we got a good rhythm, so we roll up, park out front, head inside. The elevator's busted like always, so we're taking the stairs up to the 3rd floor. We can hear a TV blaring from one apartment, a baby crying in another, normal stuff. We get to 3C, and it's dead silent. No screaming, no yelling, nothing. I knock hard. Detroit police, open up. And wait. Nothing. Sean tries the handle, and the door opens. Not locked, not even latched, just closed. That's red flag number 1 right there. We step inside, and the place is immaculate. I'm talking clean like a hotel room. Everything in its place, not a dish in the sink, floors spotless. The apartment's small, just a kitchen, living room, 1 bedroom, standard project layout. But something feels off immediately, like that feeling you get when you walk into a room and you know someone was just talking about you, you know? The air feels thick, stuffy, even though it's November and cold as hell outside. I call out again. Police, is anyone home? We got a call about a disturbance. That's when we hear it, this quiet whimpering coming from the kitchen. Sean and I draw our weapons, move toward the sound, and that's when we see her. Mrs. Patricia Hayes, the tenant. She's lying flat on her back on the kitchen floor, staring up at the ceiling, shaking. Not like cold shaking, but like trembling, like she's terrified. I holster my gun and kneel down next to her. Ma'am, are you hurt? Can you tell me what happened? She doesn't look at me, just keeps staring at the ceiling, and her lips are moving, but no sounds coming out at first. Then she whispers, so quiet I almost can't hear her. They're moving. I'm like, who's moving? Is someone else in the apartment? She slowly raises her arm and points straight up at the ceiling vent. They're in there. They don't like my cooking. I tried to make them food, but they don't like it. They keep moving around up there. Sean looks at me like, is this lady high or what? And honestly, I'm thinking the same thing, but we gotta check it out. I help Mrs. Hayes sit up, and she's still trembling, won't take her eyes off that vent. It's just a standard rectangular vent cover, white metal, sits flush with the ceiling above the stove. Sean grabs a chair, climbs up, and shines his flashlight through the slats. I don't see anything, he says. Just dust and maybe some old insulation. But then he touches the side of the vent cover, just lightly with his fingertips, and we both hear it. This scratching sound like nails on metal coming from inside the ductwork. Sean jumps down off that chair so fast he almost falls. We both heard it, clear as day. I'm thinking maybe it's rats, right? Old building, rats get into the walls and vents all the time. I radio for animal control, and then I tell Sean to pull the vent cover off so we can see what we're dealing with. He's not happy about it, but he climbs back up with a screwdriver from his belt, unscrews the 4 corners, and pulls the cover away. The smell that comes out of that opening is ungodly, like mold and dirt and rotting garbage and something else, something organic and wrong. Sean gags, covers his nose with his sleeve. I grab my flashlight and shine it up into the opening. The duct goes back about 3 feet and then turns, standard HVAC setup. But there's something in there. At first I think it's just a bundle of rags or insulation that fell loose, but then it moves. I'm not talking about rat movement or air current. I mean it deliberately pulls back, away from the light. Sean sees it too, and he's already backing up. I'm frozen, just watching, and then I see it clearly. It's a hand. A human hand, small like a child's hand, or maybe a really small adult, covered in dirt and grime so thick it looks almost black. The fingers are curled up like a claw, and as I'm watching, it slowly retreats back into the darkness of the duct, moving with this weird jerky motion like a spider or a crab, not like a person at all. I can hear it shuffling back there, nails scraping on metal. My brain is trying to process what I just saw, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe it's a kid, maybe some homeless kid crawled up there to hide or stay warm. I yell into the vent. Police, you need to come out of there right now. We're not going to hurt you. No response, just more scratching sounds, getting fainter, moving away deeper into the ductwork. Chan's already on the radio calling for backup and fire department. Mrs. Hayes is laughing now, this quiet, creepy laugh, rocking back and forth on the floor. See? I told you. They're in there. They live in the walls. They've been here longer than me. Chan and I decide we need to open up the ceiling to see where these ducks go, so he gets a utility knife from his patrol bag and starts cutting into the drywall around the vent opening. What we found behind those walls, I still can't fully wrap my head around even months later. Chan pulls away chunks of drywall and insulation, and behind it we can see the ductwork, but there's more. There are holes, tunnels, passages carved through the structure of the building, through the drywall, through the studs, through the flooring. Some of them are barely a foot wide, tight little crawl spaces that branch off in different directions like a maze. And they're not random, they're deliberate, carved with tools, reinforced in some places with scraps of wood and metal. Chan shines his flashlight down one of the passages, and we can see it goes down into the floor, probably connects to the apartment below. Another one goes up, probably to the apartment above. These aren't just holes, this is a network, a system, like someone or multiple someones have been living inside the walls of this entire building. We can hear movement deeper in the tunnels, shuffling and scraping, but nothing comes close enough for us to see. The backup arrives, 4 more officers, 2 firefighters, and we start pulling apart more of the walls in the apartment. Mrs. Hayes just sits there on her couch watching us, smiling now, calm as anything. They've been here for years. They watch through the vents. They take food sometimes. I leave plates out for them, but they never like what I make. Too much salt, maybe. One of the other officers finds a cache in the wall behind her bedroom. Old food wrappers, water bottles, pieces of clothing, all stuffed into a hollow space. We evacuated the building and brought in structural engineers and a full forensics team, and what they found turned my stomach. The tunnel system extended through at least 6 apartments on 3 different floors. They found evidence that people, actual people, probably multiple individuals, had been living inside the walls and ceiling spaces for an extended period, maybe years. They found waste, makeshift bedding, personal items. But here's what really freaked everyone out. They found scratch marks on the inside of the walls around the vents, like someone had been watching the tenants through the slats, looking into their apartments. Some of the vents had the slats bent just slightly, just enough to give a better view. They brought in dogs, thermal imaging, the whole works, but they never found anyone inside those tunnels. Whoever was living in there was gone, scattered into other parts of the building or into the city. Mrs. Hayes was taken for a psych evaluation, and she told the doctors that she'd known about them for months, that they'd been getting bolder, coming out at night to take food from her kitchen, moving her things around. She said she tried to befriend them, leave offerings, but they never trusted her. The building was condemned 2 weeks later. The city said it was structurally unsound, which was true, but the real reason was nobody wanted to live there knowing what had been inside the walls. As for me, I transferred to a different precinct. I couldn't work that area anymore. Every apartment I walked into, I'd stare at the vents, listen for sounds in the walls. I'd go home and I'd hear my own building settling, and I'd be up all night thinking about those tunnels, that hand, the way it moved. My husband thinks I'm paranoid because I've sealed every vent in our house with mesh screens, but I don't care. Because I know what I saw, and I know that in a city like Detroit, where people fall through the cracks every day, some of them don't just disappear. They find other ways to survive, other places to hide. And sometimes those places are a lot closer than you think. Sometimes they're right above your head, watching, waiting, living in the spaces between your walls, and you never even know it until it's too late. Name's James Reed, New York State Trooper, been on the job for 9 years now, mostly highway patrol on the I-90 corridor near Buffalo. It's lonely work, especially the graveyard shift, just you and the road and whatever trouble finds its way onto the asphalt. This happened back in February, middle of winter, one of those nights where the cold just cuts right through you and the highway's empty, except for the occasional semi-hauling freight. It's around 2:15 in the morning, and I'm doing my regular sweep westbound when I spot taillights on the shoulder, flashers off, just sitting there dark. I slow down, flip on my overhead lights, and pull in behind it. It's a dark gray Hyundai Sonata, newer model, maybe 2019 or 2020. Front end's got some damage. Looks like it sideswiped the guardrail. Driver's door is wide open, interior lights on. Engine's off, but the keys are still in the ignition. I run the plates while I'm still in my cruiser. Comes back registered to a Michael Ventura out of Rochester. No warrants, no reports. I grab my flashlight, step out into the freezing wind, and approach the vehicle calling out. State police, anyone injured? Nothing. Dead silence except for the wind howling through the trees. I shine my light into the car, nobody inside, front or back. No blood, no obvious signs of struggle, just an empty car with the door hanging open like someone got out in a hurry. I'm thinking it's a standard DUI situation. Guy hit the rail, panicked, and took off on foot to avoid the breathalyzer. Happens more than you'd think. I do my walkthrough, check the back seat, the trunk, nothing unusual. Registration and insurance are in the glove box, everything legit. There's a half-empty coffee cup in the holder, still lukewarm, so whoever was driving left recently, maybe 20 or 30 minutes tops. I'm about to call it in when I notice something sitting in the console between the seats. It's one of those old-school handheld tape recorders, the kind from like the 90s with the little cassette inside and the chunky buttons on top. And it's on. The little red light is glowing, the tape is rolling, and I can hear this faint hissing sound coming from the tiny speaker. I pick it up, turn up the volume a little. It's just static, white noise, nothing else. I figure maybe the driver was recording a voice memo or listening to something, and it just kept playing after they left. I hit stop, pop the tape out to check it, unlabeled, just a plain black cassette, and I put it back in. Standard procedure is to bag any potential evidence, so I grab an evidence bag from my kit, drop the recorder in there, seal it up, and toss it in my trunk. I spend another 20 minutes searching the area with my flashlight, walking the tree line, calling out, checking for footprints in the snow on the shoulder. Nothing. No sign of the driver anywhere. I radio it in. Dispatch, this is Trooper Reed. I've got an abandoned vehicle, mile marker 437, possible DUI walk-off, no injuries apparent, requesting a tow. The car gets towed, I file my report, and honestly I don't think about it again until 3 days later when I get a call from the evidence lab. It's this tech guy, Tommy Chin. I've worked with him before on a few cases, good dude, knows his stuff. He sounds weird on the phone, kind of shaken up, and he says, "Reed, you need to come down here and listen to something. That tape recorder you brought in from the I-90 scene? There's something on it." I'm confused because I listened to it, there was nothing but static. Tommy says, "Yeah, that's what we thought too, but I ran it through some audio software, filtered out the white noise, and there's voices underneath. You need to hear this." I drive down to the lab, and Tommy's got the tape loaded up on his computer, waveforms all over the screen. He's got this look on his face like he saw a ghost. He says, "I'm gonna play it for you, but I gotta warn you, it's disturbing." He hits play, and at first it's just that static I heard before, but then he adjusts some levels and suddenly I can hear them, whispers. Multiple whispers, overlapping, faint and distorted like they're coming through a bad phone connection or underwater. I can't make out words at first, just this murmuring, but Tommy isolates different tracks and plays them one at a time. The first one says, clear as day, he's coming. My blood goes cold. Tommy plays the next one, he's slowing down. Then another, he's pulling over. I'm just staring at the screen, my heart pounding, because I know what this is. These voices are describing me arriving at the scene. Tommy keeps playing the clips, and every single one is narrating exactly what I did that night, step by step, like someone was watching me in real time. He's getting out of the car. He's walking to the vehicle. He's shining his light inside. He's checking the trunk. I can hear my own breathing getting faster as Tommy plays each one. Then there's a pause in the recording, just static for a few seconds, and then a new voice, different from the others, deeper, clearer. He's looking at the center console. Another pause. He's picking up the recorder. I actually stepped back from the computer at that point because the realization hit me like a truck. Whoever made this recording was describing me finding the recorder itself. Tommy looks at me and says, "There's one more." He plays the last clip, and this time the voice is crystal clear, no distortion, no static, just a man's voice, calm and cold. Now he knows we were watching. The recording ends. Tommy and I just sit there in silence for a minute. Finally I ask him, "Is this some kind of prank? Did someone edit this after I brought it in?" Tommy shakes his head. "No way. The evidence seal was intact when I opened the bag, and the tape itself shows no signs of tampering. According to the metadata, this was all recorded in one continuous session. Whoever made this tape recorded it before you even arrived at the scene, or..." He trails off because neither of us wants to finish that thought. Or they were there while I was there, watching me, recording me, and I never saw them. I went back through my dashcam footage from that night frame by frame, and my body cam too, looking for any sign of someone else being there. Nothing. Not a single person visible anywhere in the footage. Just me, the empty car, and the dark woods surrounding the highway. But the voices on that tape described everything I did with perfect accuracy, things that only someone physically present could have known. Where I walked, where I pointed my flashlight, when I picked up the recorder, all of it documented in those whispers. The case got kicked up to the State Police Criminal Investigation Unit, and they tried to track down Michael Ventura, the registered owner of the Sonata. They found his apartment in Rochester, door unlocked, place empty. No sign of him, no sign of struggle, nothing. His phone was on the kitchen counter, dead battery. His wallet and ID were there. It's like he just vanished. Detectives pulled phone records, bank records, talked to his employer, nothing. Last confirmed sighting was 2 days before I found his car on the highway. They never found him. The tape got sent to the FBI for further analysis, and I heard through the grapevine that they found something else embedded in the audio, some kind of secondary layer of sound that required specialized equipment to detect, but nobody would tell me what it was. My supervisor pulled me aside a week later and told me to drop it, said the feds were handling it and it was above my pay grade. But I could tell he was spooked too. Everyone who listened to that tape got the same look on their face, that hollow-eyed, can't-sleep look. I still patrol the I-90, but I don't take the night shifts anymore, and I never stop at mile marker 437 unless I absolutely have to. Sometimes when I'm driving that stretch of highway, I think about those voices, about how they knew exactly what I was doing before I did it. Were they predicting my actions? Were they watching from the woods? Or is there something worse, something I can't even wrap my head around? The thing that keeps me up at night is that last line. Now he knows we were watching. Not, he knows we watched, present tense. Like they're still watching. Like they never stopped. I've caught myself checking my mirrors more than I should, listening for sounds that don't belong, looking over my shoulder when I'm alone. My wife noticed I've been different, more paranoid, jumpy. I haven't told her about the tape, because how do you explain that? How do you tell someone that you were being surveilled by something you couldn't see, that your every move was being recorded and narrated in real time by voices that shouldn't exist? A few months ago, I was cleaning out my patrol car, and I found another tape recorder wedged under the passenger seat. Same model, same type. I never put it there. I brought it straight to the lab, and Tommy checked it out. The tape inside was blank. No recording, no static, nothing. But the recorder was warm, like it had just been turned off. Tommy asked me if I wanted him to hold on to it, run some tests. I told him to destroy it. Burn it, smash it, I don't care, just get rid of it. He did, or at least he said he did. But I still hear static sometimes, when I'm sitting in my cruiser on a quiet stretch of road in the middle of the night. Just faint white noise on the edge of my hearing, and underneath it, if I listen real close, I swear I can hear whispers. And I know deep down in my bones that somewhere out there, someone or something is still watching, still recording, still narrating every move I make. And one day, I'm gonna find another tape, and I'm gonna hear my own voice on it, describing the moment I realized I never escaped at all. My name's Kim Dawson. I was a patrol officer in rural Ashland County, Ohio, working nights because that's where the differential pay is, and I got bills like everyone else. It's a quiet area, farm country mostly. Not a lot happens after dark except the occasional drunk driver or domestic call. So when dispatch hits me up at like 12:55 in the morning, saying there's reports of flashing lights and children crying at the old Crestwood orphanage, I figure it's just teenagers messing around or maybe homeless folks squatting. The orphanage has been abandoned since the mid-60s, just sitting there rotting on the edge of town, surrounded by overgrown fields and dead trees. Every few months we get calls about lights or noises, and it's always nothing. Kids with flashlights trying to scare each other or whatever. My partner that night was Officer Jake Morrison. Good guy, been on the force longer than me, real steady and no-nonsense type. We roll up to the property around 1:15, and the place looks exactly like you'd expect. Boarded up windows, peeling paint, roof caving in, chain link fence half knocked down. Jake parks the cruiser and we grab our flashlights. He radios in. Unit 7, we're on scene at Crestwood, beginning exterior sweep. The building's huge, 3 stories, red brick, probably held 100 kids back in its day. Now it's just a shell, a monument to neglect. We can see a faint light flickering in one of the third-floor windows, probably our teenagers with their phones or a lantern. Jake looks at me. Ready? I nod, and we head in through the busted front entrance. The second we stepped inside, the temperature dropped at least 20 degrees, and this smell hit us. Old crayons mixed with mildew, and something sweet and rotten. The main hallway was long, lined with doors hanging off their hinges, floors covered in debris and water damage. Our flashlights cut through the darkness, and everything's casting these weird shadows that make your brain see things that aren't there. We clear the first floor room by room, old kitchen, administrative offices, what looked like a nurse's station, all empty except for broken furniture and trash. No sign of anyone. Jake's calling out, "Police, if anyone's in here, you need to show yourself now." But there's no response, just our voices echoing off the walls. We head upstairs to the second floor, and that's when things start feeling wrong. The hallway up there is narrower, darker, and the doors are all closed. Every single one. Jake tries the first door, locked from the outside. Next one, same thing. We go down the line, and every door is locked from the hallway side, which doesn't make sense because why would you lock kids in their rooms like that? We finally find one door that opens, and inside is a large room, probably used to be a recreation area or classroom. And that's where we saw them, the drawings. The walls were absolutely covered, floor to ceiling, with children's drawings, hundreds of them, all taped up with that old yellowed tape that's half falling off. At first I thought maybe it was just leftover stuff from when the place was operational, but then I got closer and looked at the dates written on them. These drawings were from the 50s and 60s, done by different kids based on the handwriting and styles, but every single one showed the same thing. They were all pictures of the orphanage building drawn in crayon and pencil, mostly black and white or really muted colors, and they all had this oppressive, sad feeling to them. Lots of barred windows, high walls, that kind of thing. But what got my attention was this figure that appeared in almost every drawing. It was tall, way too tall, like stretched out and distorted, and it was always wearing what looked like a police uniform. Generic, just a dark uniform with a badge shape on the chest and a hat. The figure was always standing outside the building, looking in through the windows, and in every single picture, the eyes were blank. Not drawn blank, but like the kids intentionally left them empty, just white circles or sometimes just holes in the paper. One drawing had a caption in shaky child handwriting, "The man who watches." Another said, "He comes at night." Jake's looking at all this and he says, "This is creepy as hell, but it's just old kids' drawings." Orphanages were rough back then. Probably some cop used to come around and scare them straight or something. I wanted to believe that, but something about those drawings felt wrong, like they weren't just depicting a memory but a warning. We kept moving, heading up to the third floor where we'd seen the light. The staircase was narrow, and the steps creaked like they might give way any second. My heart was pounding, and I couldn't shake this feeling that we were being watched, that something in this building knew we were here. We reached the third floor, and the flickering light was coming from the attic access at the end of the hallway, a pull-down ladder already extended. Jake goes up first, gun drawn, and I follow right behind him. The attic was mostly empty, just exposed beams and insulation and dust everywhere. In the corner was an old battery-powered lantern, the kind construction workers use, and it was flickering on and off, batteries dying. That's what people saw from the road. Jake laughs, relieved. Mystery solved, someone left a light up here. He radios dispatch. Unit 7, building is clear, source of lights was an old lantern, no occupants, appears secure. I'm scanning the attic with my flashlight, making sure we didn't miss anything, when I see it. Pinned to one of the wooden support beams with a thumbtack is a piece of paper. Brand new paper, bright white, nothing like the yellowed drawings downstairs. I walk over to it, shine my light on it, and my stomach drops. It's a drawing done in blue ballpoint pen, very detailed, and it shows the attic we're standing in right now. The beams, the layout, even the lantern in the corner. And in the drawing, there are two figures, two police officers, one male and one female, standing exactly where Jake and I are standing. And in the background, drawn in darker ink, is that same tall figure from the downstairs drawings, the one in the police uniform with the empty eyes, watching them from the shadows. At the bottom of the drawing, written in that same childish handwriting but fresh, recent, is a caption. "Welcome, Officer Dawson." I couldn't breathe. My name was on that paper, my actual name, and this drawing was made recently. I could tell by the ink and the paper quality. Jake comes over. "What is it?" And I just hand it to him. He looks at it, looks at me, looks around the attic, and I can see his face go pale even in the dim light. "How the hell?" He starts, but doesn't finish. We both know there's no rational explanation for this. Nobody knew we were responding to this call until dispatch sent us 20 minutes ago. Even if someone was monitoring police scanners, they wouldn't have had time to get up here, draw this detailed picture including our exact positions, and leave before we arrived. And how did they know my name? I don't wear a name tag. It's on my uniform shirt, but you'd have to be close to read it. Jake radios for backup, says we might have a trespasser, and we start searching the attic more thoroughly. Nothing. No one. No other way in or out except the ladder we came up. We go back downstairs, check every room again, every closet, every space big enough to hide a person. The building is empty. But when we get back to that recreation room with all the drawings, there's a new one. I swear to God it wasn't there before. It's pinned right in the center of the wall, and it shows Jake and me walking down the second-floor hallway, and that tall figure is right behind us, so close he's almost touching Jake's shoulder. Neither of us saw anyone, neither of us heard anything, but someone was there. Someone was following us through that building, drawing us, watching us, and we never noticed. Backup arrived for more officers and AK, 9 unit, and they swept the entire property. Found nothing, no footprints, no DNA, no evidence anyone had been there in months. The drawings were photographed and sent to the county sheriff's office for analysis. Handwriting experts said the recent ones were done by the same person, probably an adult mimicking a child's handwriting. The paper was standard printer paper, you can buy anywhere. The ink was from a common Bic pen, dead end after dead end. The case went cold within a week. But here's what I can't forget. I requested the old records from Crestwood Orphanage, the ones archived at the county clerk's office, and I went through them looking for anything about a police officer connected to the place. What I found made me sick. In 1962, there was an officer named Thomas Welch who used to do welfare checks on the orphanage, supposedly making sure the kids were being treated right. Multiple complaints were filed by staff members saying Welch would show up late at night, unannounced, and walk the hallways, looking into rooms where the children slept. He'd stand at the windows outside and watch them. The complaints went nowhere because Welch was connected. His father was the police chief. Then in June 1963, 3 children disappeared from Crestwood over the span of 2 months. Welch was investigated, but never charged. The orphanage closed in 1965 citing financial difficulties, but the real reason was nobody wanted to send their kids there anymore. Welch died in 1967, car accident, drove off a bridge. Here's the thing, I found his service photo in the archives. Tall guy, over 6'5", which was giant back then, and when I compared his uniform to the figure in those drawings, it was a perfect match. So what the hell happened in that attic? Was it some kind of residual haunting, an echo of the past? Was someone messing with us, doing research and setting up an elaborate prank? Or is there something in that building, something that knows when police officers enter, something that's been watching and waiting for 60 years? I don't have answers. What I do have is a framed drawing on my wall at home, the one with my name on it. I kept it as a reminder of why I quit. I couldn't do the job anymore knowing that sometimes, when you're investigating the darkness investigates you right back. And sometimes it knows your name before you even arrive. My name's John Darnell. I was a deputy with the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office in Portland, Oregon. Been doing it for about 8 years when this happened. My partner that day was Deputy Lisa Chun, solid cop, seen plenty of rough stuff same as me. We get a call around 2 in the afternoon for a welfare check in Redwood Hills, this kind of rundown trailer park on the outskirts of the city. The complainant was a neighbor, Mrs. Alvarez, said there was a god-awful smell coming from the trailer next to hers for the past week, and she hadn't seen Mr. Robert Thomas, the guy who lived there, in over 2 weeks. Said he was a quiet guy, kept to himself, didn't cause trouble, but that smell was getting unbearable, and she was worried. We've all done these calls before, and you know what that smell usually means. Someone died alone, and nobody noticed for days or weeks. It's sad, but it happens more than people think, especially with elderly folks or people who don't have family checking on them. So Lisa and I drive out there, and before we even get out of the patrol car we can smell it. That thick, sweet, rotten smell of decomposition that sticks in your nose and your throat. Mrs. Alvarez is waiting outside her trailer with a handkerchief over her face. She points to the trailer next door. That one, number 47. I called you guys 3 days ago, but nobody came. Lisa apologizes, tells her we're here now, and we approach the trailer. The smell gets worse with every step, and by the time we're at the door I'm breathing through my mouth trying not to gag. Lisa knocks hard. Sheriff's Department, Mr. Thomas, we need to check on you. Nothing. She tries the door locked. We walk around the trailer checking windows, and they're all covered from the inside with sheets or cardboard. We can't see in anywhere. Standard procedure at this point is to force entry for a welfare check, especially with that smell. So Lisa radios it in, and I go back to the cruiser to grab the Halligan tool. I come back, wedge it into the doorframe, and pop the lock. The door swings open, and the smell that comes out is like a physical wall, just hits you in the face. Lisa actually steps back and dry heaves. I pull my shirt up over my nose and we step inside, announcing ourselves again, even though we both know nobody living is answering. The interior of the trailer is small, just a combined living room and kitchen area, a tiny bathroom, and a bedroom in the back. It's dim inside because of all the covered windows, so we click on our flashlights. The place is neat, surprisingly clean, everything organized, no clutter, no mess. Except for the smell, and except for what we see at the dining table. There's a man sitting there, upright in a chair, and even from across the room, I can tell he's been dead for a while. We move closer, and Jesus Christ, the sight of him is something I'll never forget. Mr. Robert Thomas was sitting at the head of a small dining table, and his body was almost completely skeletal. Just skin stretched tight over bones, sunken eyes, mouth open. He'd been dead maybe 2 or 3 weeks based on the decomposition, but here's the thing that made it immediately weird. He didn't die from natural causes like a heart attack or a stroke. The medical examiner confirmed later he died from starvation and dehydration. This man literally starved to death sitting at his own dining table. But the real horror was the setup. The table was set for 3 people. 3 full-place settings, plates, silverware, napkins, glasses, the whole deal. 2 of the plates had food on them, or what used to be food. Now it was just rotting, moldy masses, green and black, covered in maggots. Looked like maybe roast meat and vegetables, completely spoiled. The 3rd plate, the one in front of Mr. Thomas, was completely empty. Not a crumb on it. Just a clean white plate, sitting there in front of a man who starved to death. Lisa's taking photos, documenting everything, and I'm looking around trying to make sense of it. On the counter there's more food, all rotten, a pie with mold growing on it, a casserole dish with something gray and fuzzy, pots on the stove with God knows what inside. This man had cooked full meals, elaborate meals, and then just let them rot. Behind Mr. Thomas, on the wall, there's a mirror, one of those cheap rectangular ones you get at Walmart. And written on the mirror in what looks like black marker, in shaky handwriting, is a sentence. I prepared the banquet. They refused to eat. We searched the rest of the trailer looking for any clues about what happened, and that's when I found the diary sitting on his nightstand. It was a plain spiral notebook, the kind kids use for school, and it was filled with entries dated over the past 6 months. I started reading, and my skin just crawled. Robert Thomas was apparently a deeply religious man, lots of Bible quotes and references to salvation and testing. But starting about 4 months before his death, the entries changed. He started writing about guests in his trailer. He called them the 2 witnesses, and said they were sent to test his faith and his ability to provide hospitality. He described them as presences he couldn't see but could feel, and he believed that if he could serve them the perfect meal, a perfect recreation of the Last Supper, he would be saved and granted entry to heaven. The entries became obsessive. He documented every meal he prepared: roast pork with gravy, apple pie, macaroni and cheese, fried chicken, mashed potatoes. He'd set the table for 3, put food on 2 plates for his invisible guests, and then he'd sit at his own empty plate and wait. He wrote that he couldn't eat until they ate first, that it would be disrespectful, that he had to prove his worthiness by fasting while offering them abundance. As the weeks went on, the entries got more desperate. He wrote that the guests were displeased, that the food wasn't good enough, that they were angry with him. One entry said, "The roast was overcooked. They didn't touch it. I have failed again. I must do better." Another, "I can hear them whispering at night. They say I am not worthy. I will try again tomorrow." The last few entries were written in a shaky, barely legible hand, and you could tell he was losing his grip on reality as he got weaker. 3 days before what the me estimated was his date of death, he wrote, "I am so hungry. I haven't eaten in 12 days, but I cannot break the fast. They are testing me. If I eat before they accept my offering, I will be damned forever." 2 days before, "I made the gravy today. I tasted it to make sure it was perfect, but when I set it on the table it had gone cold. They are angry. I can feel their anger. The temperature in the room drops when they are displeased. I must apologize." The final entry, written in letters so shaky you could barely read them. "They are standing behind me now. I can feel them. They are angry because the gravy is cold. I must apologize. I must make them understand. I am trying my best. Please let me be worthy. Please." That was it. The last thing Robert Thomas ever wrote before he sat down at that table and starved to death waiting for invisible guests to eat food that was rotting in front of him. Lisa and I just stood there in that trailer, surrounded by the smell of death and spoiled food, trying to process what we'd just read. This wasn't a crime scene, it was a tragedy, a mental breakdown that nobody caught in time. Robert Thomas had no family, no friends checking on him, no support system. He descended into some kind of religious psychosis and convinced himself he had to starve to prove his faith, and nobody knew until he was already dead. The case was ruled a death by misadventure due to mental illness, and the trailer was cleaned out and put back on the rental market within a month. But I couldn't let it go. For weeks after, I kept thinking about those entries, about Robert sitting there day after day, cooking elaborate meals, setting the table for guests that didn't exist, slowly wasting away while food rotted inches from his face. I started having nightmares about it. I'd dream I was sitting at that table with him and the two empty chairs, and I could feel something in those chairs, something watching me, something cold and angry. I'd wake up in a sweat, and I'd go to the kitchen to get water, and I'd just stare at my own dining table, imagining what it would be like to sit there and starve surrounded by food. It messed me up bad. I couldn't eat meals at a table anymore. Even now, 5 years later, I eat standing up at the counter or sitting on the couch. I can't sit at a dining table without feeling like there's someone in the empty chairs, someone watching, judging, waiting. My wife left me about a year after this happened, said I'd changed, said I wasn't present anymore. She was right. Part of me never left that trailer. Part of me is still standing there looking at Robert Thomas's corpse, reading his desperate words, understanding that he died believing he'd failed some cosmic test. The worst part? I don't even think he was crazy, not really. I think he was just desperately lonely, so isolated that his mind created companions, and then his faith twisted that loneliness into a test he couldn't possibly pass. And the scariest thing is how easy it would be for any of us to end up like that, alone, disconnected, spiraling into our own heads until we can't tell reality from delusion anymore. Every time I see an elderly person living alone, every time I respond to a welfare check, I think about Robert Thomas and his cold gravy, and I wonder how many other people out there are sitting at tables set for guests that will never come, slowly dying while waiting for a salvation that doesn't exist. Name's Ben Cooper. I was working patrol for Scottsdale PD in Arizona. Nice area, Pine Ridge subdivision, where the houses start at $500,000 and people worry more about their HOA violations than actual crime. It was a Wednesday night, around 9:30, when we got the call. Welfare check at 4782 Saguaro Lane. The caller was a former neighbor, said she'd been getting weird texts from Ms. Eleanor Vance, a woman she used to live next door to before moving across town. The texts were rambling, talking about drowning the sins, cleansing the foundation, washing away his marks, just really concerning stuff. The caller said Eleanor had been going through a bad divorce, real messy, and she was worried Eleanor might hurt herself. My partner that night was Officer Maria Santos, been working together about 6 months, good cop, level-headed. We pull up to this beautiful 2-story house, Spanish tile roof, manicured lawn, BMWs in the driveway, the whole upper-middle-class dream. Everything looks normal from the outside, lights on inside, no signs of disturbance. But as soon as we step out of the cruiser, we hear it, the sound of running water, like a lot of water, like maybe a pipe burst or something. Maria and I exchange looks, and we head to the front door. I knock, announce ourselves. Scottsdale Police, Ms. Vance, we're here to check on you. No answer, just that constant sound of rushing water. I try the door and it's unlocked, swings right open, and the sound gets louder but the main floor is completely dry. No water damage, no flooding, nothing. The house is immaculate, actually like something out of a magazine. White furniture, artwork on the walls, fresh flowers in a vase, everything perfect. But that water sound is coming from somewhere, and it's loud like multiple faucets running full blast. Maria calls out again. Ms. Vance, it's the police. We need to see that you're okay. Still nothing. We start clearing rooms, kitchen, living room, dining room, all empty, all dry. Then I notice a door at the end of the hallway, slightly open, and the sound is definitely coming from down there. Basement. I open the door wider and the smell hits me immediately, mold, mildew, and chlorine, like a swimming pool that hasn't been maintained, mixed with something metallic. Maria's right behind me, and we start descending the stairs, our boots echoing on the wood. The sound gets deafening, and as we reach the bottom step, I see water. The entire basement is flooded, at least a foot deep, maybe more, dark murky water sloshing around our ankles as we step into it. My first thought is a water heater burst or a sewer backup, but then I see her. Ms. Eleanor Vance is in the middle of the basement, on her knees in the water, wearing nothing but a soaked nightgown that's clinging to her. She doesn't even look up when we enter. She's scrubbing the concrete floor with something, her whole body moving in this rhythmic, mechanical motion. We wade toward her, the water soaking through our uniforms, and I'm calling her name, but she doesn't respond, just keeps scrubbing and humming this tune, almost like a hymn. As we get closer, I can see what she's using. In one hand, she's got this industrial-strength chemical cleaner, the kind that says, "Wear gloves and eye protection" on the label. And in her other hand, she's got a wire brush, the kind you'd use to strip paint or rust off metal. She's scrubbing the concrete floor underwater, her movements frantic and purposeful, and she's singing softly. Wash away, purify the stone, cleanse the foundation, make it pure again. Maria reaches her first and puts a hand on her shoulder. Ms. Vance, we need you to stop and come with us, okay? Let's get you out of this water. That's when Eleanor finally looks up and I see her face. Her eyes are wide, pupils dilated, but she's smiling this serene, peaceful smile that doesn't match the situation at all. She says in this calm, dreamy voice, "I can't stop yet. I haven't finished." The voice said I have to clean every inch. I have to bleed the concrete clean. That's when I notice her hands. They're destroyed. The palms are raw, stripped of skin, bleeding steadily, and I can see white, bone or tendon, I don't know, through the torn flesh. She's literally scrubbed her hands down to nothing, and she's still going, still dragging that wire brush across the concrete underwater like it's the most important task in the world. Maria's radioing for an ambulance, and I'm trying to gently take the brush and chemical bottle from Eleanor's hands, but she resists, pulls away. No, I'm not done. You don't understand. The foundation is corrupted. He put his mark here. He infected the house with his sin, and I have to remove it. The voice told me how to fix it. She's getting agitated now, splashing in the water, trying to go back to scrubbing. I manage to get the bottle away from her, and Maria grabs the brush, and that's when I look down at what she's been scrubbing. The basement floor is covered in symbols, crude drawings and writing done in what looks like dark red paint. But as I look closer, I realize it's not paint. It's blood. Old blood, dried and flaking, mixed with fresh blood from her hands. There are words too, scratched and painted. Liar, betrayer, defiler, corrupter. Over and over, covering probably 100 square feet of concrete. And there are shapes that look almost ritualistic, circles, crosses, spirals, all overlapping in this chaotic mess. Eleanor had apparently spent hours, maybe days, painting these symbols on her basement floor, and then decided she needed to scrub them off, to literally wash them away with her own blood and chemicals. She starts crying now, not hysterical crying, but this deep, exhausted sobbing. He ruined everything. He brought sin into this house, into our bed, into our foundation. The voice said the only way to purify it is through sacrifice. Blood and water. That's what it takes. Blood and water. The paramedics arrived, and they had to sedate her to get her out of the basement because she fought us every step of the way, screaming about unfinished work and corruption. They loaded her onto a stretcher and took her to the hospital, and Maria and I stayed behind to secure the scene and figure out what the hell we were dealing with. We found the source of the water. Eleanor had turned on every faucet in the house and plugged all the drains in the basement, intentionally flooding it. She'd been standing in that water for hours, maybe longer, scrubbing with chemicals and wire brushes until her hands were hamburger. We called in detectives, and they did a full investigation. Turns out Eleanor's husband had cheated on her, filed for divorce, and moved out 3 months prior. According to her sister, who we contacted, Eleanor had become obsessed with the idea that her husband's infidelity had infected the house, that his presence had left some kind of spiritual contamination that she needed to remove. She'd started seeing a therapist, but stopped going after 2 sessions. She'd isolated herself, stopped answering calls, stopped going to work. And apparently she'd started hearing a voice. She told the psych evaluators at the hospital that it was God's voice, or an angel, telling her exactly what she needed to do to cleanse her home. The symbols on the floor? They were her attempt to mark all the places her husband had touched, all the spaces he'd occupied, so she'd know what needed to be cleaned. The blood was intentional too. She believed her own blood had purifying properties, that her pain and sacrifice would sanctify the house. Eleanor Vance was committed to a psychiatric facility for evaluation and treatment, diagnosed with severe depression and psychotic features brought on by the trauma of her divorce. The house was eventually sold by the bank after she couldn't make mortgage payments. I heard through the grapevine that the new owners had to completely replace the basement flooring, because the concrete was permanently stained and the whole foundation had water damage. But here's what stuck with me, what I think about even now, years later. Eleanor wasn't violent. She wasn't trying to hurt anyone but herself. The enemy she was fighting was invisible, intangible. It was betrayal, humiliation, the destruction of everything she'd built her life around. And when the pain became too much, when she couldn't process it rationally anymore, her mind broke and created a solution. If the house is corrupted, clean the house. If cleaning requires sacrifice, sacrifice yourself. It was logic twisted by madness, but it was still logic. And the scariest part is understanding how close any of us are to that breaking point. One bad relationship, one betrayal, one traumatic event, and the brain can just fracture. For weeks after that call, I couldn't get the image out of my head. Eleanor on her knees in bloody water, smiling peacefully while she destroyed herself, completely convinced she was doing something righteous and necessary. My uniform smelled like mold and chlorine for days no matter how many times I washed it. And sometimes I swear I could smell copper too, the smell of blood, even though I'd never actually touched any. Maria requested a transfer to a different district about a month later. She never said it was because of that call, but I knew. Some things you see on this job, you can compartmentalize, you can file away and move on. But some things burrow into you and change the way you see the world. Now, whenever I respond to a welfare check, whenever someone mentions hearing voices or needing to fix something, I think about Eleanor and her corrupted foundation, and I wonder how many other people out there are quietly drowning in their own basements, bleeding themselves clean of sins that were never theirs to begin with.